listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, and the Digital Satellite Network. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. Now on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our radio website, that you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365 or the live show Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. The X-Zone, I should say the X-Chronicles newspaper is now available free with the compliments of the X-Zone, the X-Chronicles newspaper, Relmar McConnell Media Company, and all our advertisers at www.relmar.com/X201510. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Richard DeRose. Now, in 1998, Richard published a book entitled Retail to Hell: Why We Need to Fear the Information Highway, Superstores, and Superpowers. The book was foretold how the greatest economic power ever conceived, the United States, would fail in just a decade if it didn't change its course of action. In the book, he told how, why, and when. No one listened back then, and it's coming true. How did he know this would happen? Well, because he had written about it before. 30 years ago, he wrote a book entitled Brainwashed, Are You? This amazing and inspiring book tells so much that is not understood. However, the word wasn't ready for the truth then, nor was it ready in 1998. So it went unpublished for 33 years. Now the timing is right and the truth can be revealed. In this book, Richard describes the world, our dance to its destruction, its cause, and what, if anything, we can do about it. Joining me now is Richard DeRose. And Richard, always great having you here on the X-Zone. How have you been, good sir?
Oh, I've been doing great, Rob. Thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be back.
Let's take a look at the world today, Richard. Let me see. Where do we start? Well, I've got to tell you, now this latest incident that has all the news media around the world buzzing is that ISIS claimed responsibility for the downing of a Russian jet filled with civilian passengers this past weekend as a result of the intervention of, as ISIS puts it, Pig Putin, sticking his nose and his troops into Syria. As somebody who has kept their eyes and their ears and their pulse on the world events, what does this all mean to you, Richard?
Well, basically it means we're leading up to World War III. If you started talking this way, 10, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of people thought you're crazy, but now these events are actually showing up. I mean, if we actually send 50, troops in and then they're actually killed, I mean, that can start a war right there. And it's crazy to get involved in the Syrian situation, which we messed up to begin with, with Bush. So it's unbelievable. And then Obama comes along, and you just can't think anybody can mess things up. But he has really changed the equation of what's going to happen. I mean, I don't think you could save this country even if Donald Trump gets in and changes it. It's just too far gone.
When Bush, when Obama started backing away from the lines that he drew in the sand a couple of times, I believed at that time it was a sign that Putin was looking at, saying, "Hey, the United States is not as strong as we thought they were."
Well, we're not strong because we're basically bankrupt. We keep sending $1 million bombs over there, and jet aircraft that cost tons of millions of dollars, and then we're getting a situation where we can't pay our bills. We owe China so much money, and it's just crazy. So eventually we're going to run out of money, and China now, another interesting thing, is trying to get their monetary policy to be the world exchange, and when that happens, America's not going to be important anymore, and that could happen the next 4 or 5 years. So you got a situation where our debt may be called, and then the whole system goes down, which will take around the rest of the world in a sense, and cause a war itself, because they always start wars when there's economic problems at home.
So tell me, Richard, do you think it's too late to turn everything around?
Yeah, because it's part of this plan that God has set up for us, and if you knew what the plan was and follow it, it's shocking to me in one way, but I know what the plan is. So, but just to see it take place, the situation, like I say, in Syria, Putin's really trying to start a war. He doesn't realize it, but he's just trying to back us down in a sense, and he's in financial trouble too. So, why would he waste his resources that way? But like Donald Trump says, let him spend his money and his soldiers over there, trying to straighten out a mess instead of us doing it.
Do you think Trump would? Do you think Trump would make a good president?
I think in many ways he would. I don't know. I think the pressure might get to him over time, but at least he's talking the talk, and nobody's ever done that before. I mean, he is speaking things that are basically need to be talked about, and we should have been that way all along, but we don't. We live our little dream world and prefer not to hear the truth and this, that, and the other. So as long as our politicians keep lying to us, we're usually happy. But this is interesting because this is the first time that I've known about in my lifetime where people are finally fed up and they want more of the truth. That's why he's leading in the polls, and he's doing much better than people are giving credit for, because he's going actually to the independents and also some more conservative Democrats. He's got good support there.
And I think as of today, Bernie Sanders, not Bernie Sanders, but Dr. Ben Carson, I think he's just shot himself in the foot a couple of times with the media trying to vet the stories that he related in his book, where he was a pathological. He had a pathological anger problem where he tried to kill somebody as a child, and then he hit his mother with a hammer, and all this violence. And you're looking at the guy saying, that's not the Ben Carson that we're used to. Mm-hmm. How do you think this?
I think he'll self-destruct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the more he becomes a front leader like this, the more people will look deep into who he is and try to take him down. And then more people will not listen because they'll say, oh, that's just the media, who happens to be so low rated that they're even rated in the polls lower than Congress, and Congress is rated lower than a cockroach.
Yeah. What about Jeb Bush?
Oh, I think he's just part of the establishment that people are tired of, and they don't want that to be the case, and I don't think he'll do well at all. No. Even though the establishment would love to see him in, I think that's why he was trying to push Rubio out. I don't know if you paid attention to the last debates.
Oh, with bated breath, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Because whatever happens south of the 49th parallel will definitely affect us up here.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be devastating for the world, really.
Yeah.
And even China. Yeah.
So let's go back a couple of years and talk about your book, Retail to Hell. Why we need to fear the information highways, superstores, and powers. And you published this in 1998. Let me ask you, when and how did you discover this plan to manipulate mankind?
Well, it came from the first book, Brainwashed. I started watching things, come about, and I figured just from what I was watching at the time in 96, 97, I actually started kind of thinking about it in 94. And then I did more research on it. I was just kind of amazed at some of the stuff that I found out just looking beneath the surface, and so I was able to forecast really what was going to happen by knowing what was in Brainwashed, and it has been amazing how it's just taken its own toll. And yet, on the other hand, it seems to be going slower than you might expect, but it's still moving, in a sense, rapidly in that direction.
Now, you say this is all part of God's plan. Why would God want to see us fail?
Well, basically, what he's trying to do is harvest spirits, not souls, but spirits. And the soul is really a combination of the mind, body, and the spirit together. So he's trying to let us go through these experiences, both good and bad, so we'll develop and mature as a spirit, so he can put us in an immortal body. So people don't quite get the gist of that, but it's what his plan is, and he has rules set up. And we've talked about this before about interaction between spiritual beings in a sense, and why it's so hard to see one or be conclusive about the fact that they're here or not. But that's how they operate, and so I think a lot of stuff that we do see is just nothing more than manifestations.
Let me ask you this question. It's a very direct question. Is God real? How do you know he is real? And if he is real, why can't he reveal himself?
Well, this is sort of pragmatic. You're seeing this stuff take place, and if I tell you something and you say, well, that sounds logical, but how do I know? You don't know. You don't know until it happens. And so that's what this is all about, too. You can't 100% say that God's real because I've never seen God that I know of. Have you? And so, you have to believe in something. And so when people make fun of the Bible, I just sort of chuckle to myself, and I said, well, you don't understand the Bible. It's a great book, and it has a lot of information in it that is not, the average person is not privileged to, for its hidden information.
Why shouldn't the average person be privileged to this if we're all God's children? Why does he have favors even in today's society?
Well, it's weird because he just doesn't want us to know what the big plan is. I think that's why brainwash is, even though it explains a lot of it, a lot of people hadn't just flocked to it and, wanted to find out what's the answer to life. I mean, people have written probably thousands of books on it, spent, millions of hours trying to figure it out, and it's all in brainwashed, and it's just, it's funny, but people are afraid of reality, I think. The closer you get to the truth, their spirit knows it, and they try to stay away from it.
Okay, so what is the reality of the entire situation?
Well, that we're here for, to go through this process of weeding us out, see who's developed spiritually. I think that there's basically 7 billion, spirits out there, maybe a few more. And, we're going to have to go through this process to see, what our character is, spiritually speaking, not as humans, but spiritually.
But if he created us, he should know this.
Well, you'd think so, but there again, self-determination of who you are. In other words, he's not trying to tell us. In some ways he does, because the circumstances we're in can dictate, But on the other hand, he's given us free will and intellect to make these decisions for ourselves. But don't ever think that he's not, directly there manipulating each and every one of us.
But if he's manipulating us, then he's manipulating our free will as well.
That's right. But, there's a point where, he thinks at least that, he's letting us have free will. And that's probably the, dilemma that we're in. We're not really that free. I mean, take global warming, what it's doing right now. So you have air conditioning in your home and you feel comfortable compared to other generations, and yet you're realizing it's perhaps, destroying the environment. That in itself is a real conflict, and yet the electricity is cheap enough now that we can afford it, most of us. And, on the other hand, we look around and we see, global warming taking place, or climate change, and look at the havoc it's wreaking. But most people don't have air conditioning. But
people can't agree whether or not global warming is real or not. And how do we know that God is a he and not a she?
Well, we don't know that. That's the whole point. And, well, actually, what we do know is that there, according to the Bible, that there is no gender, that angels, neither male nor female.
So they're morphidites?
I don't know what they are, but they're not male or female. In other words, sex is just something that was created for humans and animals.
But once again, I have to go back to the Bible, since we're quoting it here. And it says, God said, let us create man in our image, our likeness. So if we have sex, why wouldn't God have sex if we're created in his image, his likeness?
Well, his likeness might be, 2 arms and 2 legs and a head, but not necessarily sexual organs. But Christ talks about it, in the fact that when Nicodemus, I think, asked him about the fact that, if a man's wife died and then his brother married her, this, that, and the other, whose wife would she be in the afterlife? And he basically says, that's not part of that, lifestyle for an immortal. which leads you to believe that, the sexual part of it, in a relationship is not important. But just think of all the problems that sex creates, greed, selfishness, anger, all these things are really negative things are brought about from, the need for sex and relationships and this, that, and the other. And it's ruined a lot of politicians, too.
Yeah, but so has alcohol. So have drugs. So have, wanting to have a lot of money in their pockets. And I don't think it's sex that ruins people. I think it's the human alter ego that ruins it for humanity or for certain humans. Because not everyone is addicted to sex. Not everyone desires it to the point where they're going to create they're going to commit a criminal act.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Yeah.
So how do we know that we're heading towards the end? Throughout history, there have been end-time predictions. The end of the world is coming. I can think of, you've got Heaven's Gate. You've got, 2012, the year Y2K, and so on. Why is it in today's society people are still fixated with the end of the world prophecies?
Well, I think some people just are in tune with it, but, we don't determine what God does. He does it himself. Jesus Christ doesn't even have control over the actual end times. But we can watch events taking place that could lead up to this Armageddon, this battle, this World War III situation. And it appears right now, and it could change, but that's where we're basically heading the next 5 to 10 years. But that could change. Like I say, God has that ability to make that decision. It has anything to do with you or me or anyone else. So, but I think you have to be prepared for it.
But if we have free will, why can't we make that decision to change it? Why does it have to be God?
Well, because he's in control, and that's the problem for us is that, we don't have that real free will. It's just sort of a concept like so many other things in our lives.
But
part of it, but not really control of it.
But not everybody on earth believes in God. There are other religious philosophies who believe in other deities. So how do we know that their deity is right and ours is wrong, or ours is wrong and theirs is right?
Well, that's a real complicated question, and it's not an easy answer, but I believe God has that figured out. But, you're right. A lot of people say, well, if you don't come through Christ, you can't get to God, and that's what even the Bible says in the New Testament. So it is confusing, but I believe he has a plan to work that out. And one of the reasons, I think I brought this up a couple of years back, I think the Spirit basically knows that before, if you have the chance, before you die, you make peace with God. It might be a split second. It might be days you're laying in the hospital or whatever, but the Spirit knows that, and so God looks at it that way because he knows what we're doing. Years ago when I talked about this, it was hard to figure it out, but if you look at say an iPhone or, just a cell phone, the amazing amount of stuff that it can do, that's what the human brain's like. So God can be all-knowing because he can tap into your brain and sends out signals that, and he has the memory that he can tap into, just like you could, if you tap into somebody's phone, you might be able to pull up their pictures and other things like that. And so we can understand it better because we know that this is going on with our, communication devices, whether it be the internet or whatever. And so, the science is there to prove that God can be all-knowing in a scientific way, because I don't think there's a conflict between God and science.
All right, no disrespect here, Richard, but how do you know God is real? How do you know that? How do you know that it's not your own belief, your own desire to believe, your own way of wanting things to work out that is not driving you, and it has nothing to do with the deity who so many people believe in, and yet none have seen?
When I was 19 years old, I said, heck with God,
right.
And I just turned away from him. And then when I got closer to 26, a lot of strange things started happening to me, in a way that you just know that it couldn't be just out there, And then the situation came up with this book, which came to a dream, and then you start seeing, this is real. Paul that wrote the Bible, big part of the Bible, was Saul, and he killed, of course, Christians for a while, and then he changed. And so when I hear people say, well, the Bible's not real, it was written by man, which is exactly what I used to say, okay? And then you see this happening, and then you watch it over the last 38 years come into fruition. It has to be something. It's pragmatic, and once you believe this process, of seeing it happen, you have to believe that, there's at least a God force out there that's making this happen.
But how can we have faith in a God who breaks his own rules? For example, the Ten Commandments that were given to Moses, and it was Moses who wrote the book of Genesis. And, here you've got a God that kills. He kills his own children, if we are to take the word that he is the father to one and all that. We are all created in his likeness and his image. Look what he did to the people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Look what happened, as the Egyptians were going through the Red Sea. How many died? And how can, it says, thou shalt not kill. How can you believe in someone who breaks his own tenets, and the most sacred tenet that says, thou shalt not kill?
Well, he's saying that for mankind, but I think the way he looks at it is, let's say, for example, you have a car that you love, and relate that to your body. And, you're driving that car and, it slides off the road and you hit a tree. Mm-hmm. And you're not damaged, you walk away from it. That's the spirit, okay, which is really you in this example. And you can get a new car, you can get a new body. And that's the way he looks at it, like, okay, I put you in a bad situation, put yourself in it, you lost your body, but I can bring you back to life. And it even says that, don't fear, he who can kill you, but he who can kill you and not bring you back. So that's important to understand that. That's the way he looks at it. It is a bit of what you might call sort of a borderline personality, where it's narcissistic in a sense, and it's just like, everything's about me, myself, and I. And you can't deny that if you're trying to be honest about God. But like I say, in the overall scheme of things, he sees it differently than we do. He looks at it from a bigger picture, which justifies some of the evil that we see. Look at the Christians being killed in the Middle East. I mean, how do you explain that? Yeah,
greed, ego. It has nothing to do with God. This is all man's doing. And I think when people put the negativity that is happening in the world today on the shoulders of a deity that to my knowledge has never been seen by any man in recent years, they're fooling themselves. What they're saying is, I can't accept responsibility, or I cannot admit that mankind is so evil. Let's put it on the back of a deity. Let's blame God, or let's blame the devil. Let's blame anyone else but us. What's going on in the Middle East? How can we blame that on God if there is a God?
Well, the thing is, why don't good people come forward enough to change things? The good people that are out there, they usually get corrupted as soon as they get into the system. So, why doesn't, if you say there's a God, then why doesn't he intercede and punish people for their actions so that other people can see it? Like, if you knew every time you stuck your hand on a hot stove, you wouldn't do it but once, that you'd be burned, And, so there are people that are doing that don't get burned, and you think, well, he did it, why shouldn't I? He cheated, he ran a corporation that, cheated millions of people out of, good products and this, that, and the other, and he gets rewarded by, making $30 million a year. Why shouldn't I try that?
Let me ask you, does your God believe in reincarnation?
Absolutely. I do.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. You can't argue against reincarnation.
Why? It's not mentioned in the Bible.
Well, it's not mentioned in the Bible in itself, but it's not really criticized or, said that it doesn't exist. The verses that people see as that, they're misinterpreting them. But yet, if you think logically about, the whole situation, the only thing about God that makes sense is, like I said earlier, is the fact that you can come back, in a different life, in a different way, and learn again, and this, that, and the other, and then eventually be immortal. People talk about the resurrection, right? That's a reincarnation in itself.
Yeah, but we're not. But according, I can basically understand the resurrection when it comes to the Son of God, the Son of mankind. The Son of God, but we're not. It seems that everyone has their own interpretation of the Bible. Everybody sees in the Bible what they want to see. If the Bible was so correct, if the Bible was the Word, number one, there'd only be one religious philosophical book, the Bible. Number two, there would only be one worldwide religion. And number three, you wouldn't have the corruption that is going on within the house of God that is going on today. Right. So what I see, based on those 3 points, is that God is a creation of mankind in order to understand what he can't or to where he wants to put the blame instead of taking responsibility and blame for himself?
Well, I think a lot of people hate God because they sense the fact that things aren't working out for them, and they're depressed about things.
Mm-hmm.
And other people just are very obedient to God, and they say, well, whatever he does to me, it's okay. I'll just accept it. And they play up to God, hoping that, like insurance policy, that he won't, put them through too much.
So how do you approach God? How do you go up to God? And like if you gave us a couple of examples of people who do it one way, people do it another way. Well, what is the correct way of doing it?
Well, I think prayer is a correct way, but on the other hand, will God even listen to your prayer? It just depends on the individual. And he does show prejudice, even though the Bible in some places say that he doesn't, but it's obvious he does. I mean, he showed it towards David and others. So,
Mm-hmm.
It's quite an example there that, that does exist. But if you really look at the Bible, the contradictions in it and understand what God's trying to do, there's really not any contradictions. It's just the way we perceive the Bible to be read. And it says there in the Bible that, for it's written here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, and, that you can see but can't see, and this, that, and the other. So it's a, a book that has many aspects to it. And so you can see why people, look at it one way. And I heard a discussion this morning about, women don't have a right to, speak in church, and they're second-class citizens. And the Bible seems to support that in some ways. And another fellow was saying, yeah, but that was just for that one letter for that one church. But, how does he know that? He doesn't know it. And but women, take offense to that.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, I would too.
I certainly don't blame them. Let me ask you this question. If the Israelites are God's chosen people, why are they always in turmoil? Why are they at the bottom of the pecking ladder?
I think that's a clear understanding how God works in a sense. I mean, it's, I remember hearing something one time where God says, if we're your chosen people, please choose somebody else.
Right.
Because, they do seem to get an awful lot of abuse in many ways.
So what's the logic behind it?
The logic?
Yeah.
That's part of what we're talking about is God is illogical as far as, humans are concerned. It doesn't make sense. Why do you punish some people that do bad and, let others succeed and this, that, and the other? It's strange, but, it is what it is, and we don't have that much control over it, is basically what it comes down to. Like it or not, it is what it is.
You see, it makes no sense to me that we have no control. Because if he created us, and if he does control us, then it seems like he has nothing better to do with his time than to manipulate the people that he created, and the very same people that he expects to adorn him, pray to him, love him. This is one hell of a stupid way for anything to try and get love.
Well, it is from a human standpoint, but the way he looks at it is he's not concerned about what happens on this earth in itself this time. He wants you to grow spiritually and to the point where when he does make you immortal, if you get that point. It's kind of like, going through elementary school and then, on junior high school and this, that, and the other. There's a lot of things that we do that are really commonplace to God, and eventually getting a PhD, that's the immortality. And you got to pay the price. You've got to do the necessary things to get there. And if you're not willing to do that, you won't make it.
I don't know. Maybe it's do you think that it's possible that in the year 2015 we have outgrown the need for a God? Is it possible that we're not sheep? We don't need a shepherd. We don't need to be a shepherd who controls us, who tells us where to go, tells us what to do and how to do it. Maybe the belief in a God that is so controlling is actually holding mankind back from a spiritual, from growing spiritually.
Well, I think we are growing spiritually in the sense that, each time we go through something, we should grow from it, but some people don't, and they never will. And, that's what this Armageddon thing's all about, is to separate the sheep from the goats, as they say. And so it's not maybe your plan, maybe not even my plan.
Right.
It is a plan, and it's God's plan, and he put us here. We're here only because of him. The earth only works because God lets it work, which I think is more of a mechanical forces that you brought out.
All right, let's continue this on the other side of the news break. Richard DeRose is my guest, X Zone Nation, www.brainwashedareYou.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Digital Broadcast Network, and Digital Satellite Network. My name is Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. Celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wieka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wieka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him. How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Welcome back, everyone. Richard DeRose is our special guest this hour. His website is Brainwashed Are You? In 2010, he published Brainwash Are You? And then in 1998, Retail to Hell, Why We Need to Fear the Information Highway, Superstores, and Superpowers. Once again, Richard's website is brainwashedareYou.com. Richard, why in 1998 did you say that we should fear the information highway?
The fact that so many businesses are being lost. I mean, I talked about the future in that book, how things are going to drastically change. It's a wonder there's still brick and mortar stores out there in many cases, and of course, a lot of them have closed, and more will close in the future. A lot of shopping malls are gone under, but there's still some growth in that area. But then a lot of businesses, are just actually like Best Buys are, doing a lot of online business and brick and mortar business, or buy something online. online and pick it up there at the store.
But isn't this a sign of progress?
It could be, but it also could be destructive in the sense that what do you do about jobs? I mean, the book basically was a jobs book. I mean, what are we going to do about all these lost jobs and all this social welfare that's going to have to take place? And when we hear the unemployment rate's 5.5%, that's a lot. You know, to make economy work, you should have about a 20% more people working so that you don't have to have so much of this welfare that's going to eventually bankrupt you. You know, we not only are we spending the baby boomers' retirement money that they've paid into, and that's all gone. You know, we're also spending $1 trillion a year to keep this system going. And that's a huge amount when you think that, you know, for 200 years it took for, you know, Bush when he left office was $8 trillion. Now we're $18 trillion. It will be close to $20 trillion by the time Obama leaves. So, you know, you just can't keep living off of debt. And that's what we're doing. That's what's keeping this economy going. About a third of the money, actually more than a third of the money, because we're using the baby boomers, you know, paid in money that they have, which should be an accumulated amount of money so that the next generation below them, you know, the millennials and others, don't have to pay for us to retire as baby boomers. That's a grand theft, you know. It's just unbelievable.
But on the other hand, for all those people who are going to be out of jobs because of the brick and mortar are shutting down, why don't they go and seek retraining into a trade or into an industry where the technological industries are heading? You know, there's always a solution to a problem. And sitting at home and just crying and being on welfare or saying I can't find a job without trying to get retrained, that's not solving a problem. That's feeding the problem.
Well, that's human nature, too. But, you know, it feeds itself in a way that is depressing. But a lot of people can't lift themselves up to that level.
Why not?
You know, they just don't have the ability. I don't know. I'm actually taking a course in heat and air conditioning just to kind of keep my brain going. And it's amazing to me the low quality of people. And it's just like you're saying, where are all the good people? It's a great business. It pays well. But, you know, it's unbelievable. Most of them are there just to get that, you know, money that's like Pell Grant and, you know, just other forms of money out there to go to school, and they could care less about, you know, learning anything. It's scary, really. It's scary for what's going to happen in the next generation or two.
Well, I think the next generation is going to be way more tech savvy than anything we've seen. I think that the indigo children or the rainbow children or whatever they're being called by whatever group you want to talk to, who are coming in with a notable difference in intuition, with, you know, they're able to grasp on a lot faster. They're tech savvy. I think that they are going to be the savior that we're all looking for, because I think that they are going to start working and completing the networking tasks that the generation of today is trying to do.
Yeah, you're talking about a small percentage of the people compared to the masses that don't have that skill or ability.
Well, there's no reason for anyone not to have a skill. There is no reason at all, except if they're too damn lazy to get off their butts from in front of the television, stop eating bonbons, stop drinking beer, and getting their ass off to work. That's the only reason why they're not doing it.
Well, take, for example, that just came out probably 2 or 3 days ago, maybe Monday, about how the middle-aged, you know, people in the United States are dying off very fast, you know. There's been a growth in the death rate, and a lot of it has to do with suicide and, you know, drugs, and, you know, they say mainly, you know, lower-class people that don't have much of an opportunity to get ahead, and, you know, they're, like, say, committing suicide and other things. That's the other side of the coin that, you know, no one wants to really address. I
think the people who don't want to address that problem are the people who are damn lazy to go out and make something of their lives. I don't buy this stuff that because you're in the lower class that you cannot, that it's so hard for you that you can't get a job, that you're looked down on. The only reason that is happening is because it's a social stigma. People like that don't want to go ahead, because if you want to go ahead, if you want to learn, you will. You won't give a damn about what anybody else says.
Right. But I agree with you there. But you know, the problem is we have those people in society, and they're actually breeding faster than, you know, the people that you're talking about.
Well, of course. What else do they have to do with their days? You know?
Exactly.
You know, it's make love, not war. Make love, get. Plus, the more kids you have, the more money welfare gives you. Yeah, so I think it's a shame. I think it's a crime. I think that these are the people that, you know what? I think that everyone should have to do a tour in public service, one kind or another, whether it's joining the military, whether it's joining law enforcement, whether it's doing something constructive, and you have to do it. I don't believe in just handing off a welfare check. I don't believe in just giving off an unemployment insurance check. I don't believe in just giving off food stamps. Earn it. And I think this is where the countries, and I'm not just talking about Canada, the United States here, my friend, worldwide. Oh, poor people can't find a job. Poor people, they have 6 kids to feed. Poor people, look at that. She's a single mother who has 6 kids with 8 different fathers. Come on.
Well, you know, when you think about it, it's like you say, worldwide. Even China has trouble with their military, and they've cut back, I think, 700,000 people because the young people that grow up in China now are so lazy that they don't want to, you know, submit themselves to the discipline of the military.
Yeah, and what's China doing now? Saying, oh, geez, we don't have enough people. Well, instead of just one person, one child per family, now we're going to allow you to have 2.
Exactly.
Well, you know,
well, there is a big problem
yeah.
with that population growth. You know, it's interesting how it's leveling off. That's why I said earlier about 7 billion spirits, because we should be doubling our population, you know, worldwide at least every 30 to 40 to 50 years, and we're not doing that now. It's sort of stagnant.
Yeah. Richard, you also mentioned superstores. Why are superstores bad?
Well, because they have too much power. You know, they eliminate people like Walmart. You know, they can say what you want to about them, but there are people who literally hate Walmart. You know, they don't necessarily take care of their employees and not necessarily their customers once they get in super, you know, positions to where they don't have much competition. Of course, fortunately, Walmart is suffering from competition from Dollar General, Family Dollar, and some of those outfits that, you know, are putting a little, you know, pressure on them because those stores are going into closer neighborhoods. But now Walmart's trying to compete with them by building smaller grocery stores.
But what's wrong with that? Isn't that the American way?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you're calling it the American way, but, you know, superstores can, there's no competition in a sense. Yeah, they keep prices. Now, here's a good example. I used to own Ace Hardware years ago. That's
right.
kind of where I started thinking about this book, Retail to Hell. So what happens is, you know, Lowe's and Home Depot basically put most of those, you know, small stores out of business. There's still some around, but a lot of them, you know, fell by the wayside or became very unpopular to run one because you had to do so much work for so little money. But look at the increase of cost. Now, this is in the United States, of construction cost. And a lot of it had to do with these two, you know, superstores having so much power when their real business dropped off, they just raised the price. So now things are 4 or 5 times, you know, perhaps what they were back in 2008, just that short period of time. And so if you had competition, there's no reason for the prices to have gone up so much. If there'd been smaller stores everywhere and there hadn't been Home Depot and Lowe's, I bet the prices would have maybe doubled, but they wouldn't have gone up 4 or 5 times.
But with the cost of material going up, isn't this also reflected in the retail cost for the end user? Material costs go up, labor costs go up, everything goes up. So of course, no matter if you're a small independent, whether you're a guy who runs a mom and pop corner store, or whether you're the big guys, you have to price things accordingly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. That maybe they would have doubled over this last, you know, say 7-8 years, but they wouldn't have gone up 4 or 5 times. And so because they dominate the market, because they're superstores, they can set the price. And, of course, that pushes up, you know, price pressures everyone. You know, people will take as much as they can get, whether they're selling screwdrivers or lumber or whatever.
Exactly.
And if they realize they can make more money at it because the price is higher, they'll do that. And, of course, superstores push other people into bankruptcy, in a sense, and Walmart's been known to do that many times, where they take control and they say, look, we're going to, you know, have you make this product for $2. I don't care if it costs you $2.50 to make it. If you want to sell it at Walmart, you've got to make it for $2, or we'll go overseas and get it. And that's what they do, and that's, you know, a known fact. It's not something. So that's the problem with superstores. Well, and then they buy off politicians because they have the power to do that.
You know,
we have crony capitalism.
I love going to Costco. I love Costco. I can get the best price anywhere at Costco. Costco will give me 5 cents less a liter than the lowest place in Hamilton for gas. So I would be an idiot if I went anywhere else to buy my gas. The meat is excellent. The pricing is super. The staff are friendly. So why would I want to go somewhere else?
Well, Costco is a little bit different store than the typical superstore.
Why?
I mean, they've got a good record for that. Well, just the fellow that used to run it, I think he's retired now, but he set an example of what, a good store with a conscience should be, and it followed through, and Costco's done well. But, Sam's Club, for example, and stuff like that, they're just out to get you. They offer you a low price, and quite often you get sort of cheated. I mean, I've got a pair of glasses that, second time now, they fogged up, and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it now. I paid $600 for them, but
right.
They, said I think Costco's would have probably made them good, but we don't have a Costco in my area, so I can't shop with them. So, but I've heard great things about Costco.
But if you don't like shopping at Sam's, you don't have to. There's other places to go, aren't there?
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing. You're tempted when Sam's Club will give you a pair of glasses over an optometrist that wants to charge you, $800. You can buy them at Sam's Club for $550.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, we need to save money, so that's why we go there. It's sort of a sense of getting out of it. Once they put those little guys out of business, their glasses might be $800 too, or maybe $1,000. But it's just the way it works. And really, to be honest with you, there's still a lot of businesses out there competing. Partly because people refuse to deal with the superstores.
Okay, so what are we supposed to do? I can't see myself going to a little corner store and paying through the nose just because I don't want this guy to go out of business. Hey, right. My concern is my family.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I think the biggest thing, though, is what we're talking about here is defining what is crony capitalism.
Okay.
And what is, true capitalism. I'm a capitalist myself. I believe it's the best system for everybody. Whether it's trickle down or whatever,
mm-hmm.
You can say how bad it is, but it does work, and it gives people more stuff. But what happens is, because of the superpowers, is all of a sudden they start setting examples of what a CEO should make. And, on a dollar basis or sales or either employee basis, they might not be making that much,
Mm-hmm.
But overall, why should a man make $30 million when his employees are suffering, hardly getting by on stuff? And Walmart's a good example of that. They've had lawsuits and this, that, and the other, and now they're trying to make us believe that they care about their employees, and so they're going to raise their minimum wage, so to speak. But they've had numerous lawsuits, and that's only a PR thing because they've caught so much heat from it. But crony capitalism has to end, or it will destroy capitalism, and people will turn against it.
But if people don't like working at Walmart, they have the ability to quit and go somewhere else.
That's true, but there are less and less jobs out there, to do that. And that's the thing is, the government has picked up the slack and created a lot of jobs that aren't really jobs. They're just paying for it, and we have to, pay for it in taxes or either deficit spending. And, where we really need in the free enterprise system, capitalistic society, a lot of natural jobs. But technology, going back to what you originally said, is eliminating a lot of those. And so even when the textiles come back to the United States, and they are already starting that way because of transportation costs and this, that, and the other, and labor in China has gone up, say a factory that had 1,800 workers will probably get by with maybe 18 because they'll have, so much technology in there doing exactly what people did
right.
because of the advancement in technology, that they won't need the people. So the jobs aren't going to come back. So when Trump talks about bringing the jobs back to America, like even that Ford plant, I think there was like 1,000 jobs involved in that Ford plant that was going to go to Mexico. 10, 15, 20 years ago, that might have been 10,000 jobs, not 1,000. And but they've got the technology to eliminate, 9,000 workers.
So what are we supposed to do? Stop technology to keep the people employed? If we do that, the prices are going to go up.
Well, there has to be a certain common sense level.
There is. It's called go back to school, retrain, and find a job that there's a demand. Learn a trade where there's a demand for that trade. It's simple. What is so simple about that? It's just like the war in Syria. My suggestion is very simple. You get all the superpowers going there, wipe everything out, and put the immigrants and the refugees back in Syria. There. Solved it. What is so hard about getting people to go back to school and retrain? Let them earn their welfare checks. Let them earn their unemployment insurance checks. Let them earn their food stamps. What's wrong with that?
It's a situation where people are willing to give them something for nothing, and they'll take it. And I know what you're talking about. I've seen it firsthand, and it's discouraging if you talk to the teachers in these trade schools. They're shocked too. You don't even have to show up in class anymore in order to, like when we were in school. If you didn't show up, you paid a price for it.
Yeah.
You might miss half your classes and still get a good grade. They won't take off your grades. And that's because of the educational system we have. It just lost its discipline. It changed everything. In a sense, it made people think like, well, you're not a failure no matter if you are a failure, And I don't know if it's like that in Canada, but it's certainly here in the United States. And we paid, as taxpayers, for these people in education to deceive us and ruin our children. And that was stupid in itself.
I think that right now, no matter where you live, everyone is too politically correct. That's the biggest problem. And I think what Donald Trump is doing is he is talking the talk that everyone has been whispering about for so long. And now somebody's finally got the guts to talk about it. And you know what? He's backing his own talk with his own money, which no one else in the presidential races are doing right now.
That's true. He's a godsend in some ways, but on the other hand, I hope he survives this because, he's just a situation where a lot of people get very upset with what he has to say because they don't want to deal with the truth.
Well, and yet he's leading in the national polls.
Right. It's interesting, those Carson seems to be coming up, but I think part of that is that a lot of Republicans don't like the controversy that Trump, brings up, and they like Carson's, sort of methodical way of thinking. But on the other hand, he's black, and they want blacks to think that blacks are accepted in the party and they have a chance to move up. So some of that is sort of like a feel-good thing. And eventually, when it comes down to the wire, Carson's not going to have the support that, in other words, they might be for him as a candidate, but not as a presidential candidate. And it's going to backfire him in the long run. But he's a great guy. He's an honest person, and he means well, and he may not like all the stuff he stands for, but overall, if he was president of the United States, we'd probably be much better off. But because of that, he won't get elected.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Just watching the different debates, I would rather have him sitting in front of Putin than Ben Carson.
You talking about Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why people won't go for Carson in the end. They're kind of stringing him along, keeping him going, saying they're for him, but when it comes right down to it, they'd rather have Trump. And it doesn't mean it's a good thing. It just means that you don't necessarily want a good guy. The good guy finishes last. You'll say.
Richard, as always, whenever you're with this good friend, time goes by so fast. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and let our listeners know how they can get copies of your two books.
Well, you can go to Amazon.com, another superstore, and get it that way. That's the easiest way to get it.
Hey, wait a second. If you're against superstores, how come you allow your books to be in Amazon.com?
Well,
and not at your local.
What we're talking about is just it's what works. They want to carry the book, and other small stores don't. So, it's just the way it works. I mean, you do what you have to do, and there's no. I don't think that is hypocritical. It's just what you're talking about. You do what you have to do.
Yeah. Richard, take care of yourself. X-Zone Nation. Richard DeRose has been our guest for this hour. www.brainwashedaru.com. That's www.brainwashedaru.com. Against superstores, against technology. But where does he send people to buy his book? Amazon.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. This makes me chuckle. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724, 365. www.xzoneradiotv.com. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.